Miami River again. Seem to do that every year. So it'll be sure nice one of these days to get a license down there so we can stay in and make some real money.
From the troubles that refuse to go away as a legendary miner and his team attempt to meet their lofty target for the season, to the troubles of an up-and-coming miner that makes him cross boundaries that he would never have crossed before, here's how Tony Beets just lost millions after something terrible happened at the gold mines. Will Tony Beets ever stop searching for gold in the Klondike? Well, his recent activities in the latest season of Gold Rush tells us that this might be quite unlikely. Even despite the many challenges that he has to face as the current season takes place, we get to witness as the veteran gold miner uses his experience to overcome as many of them as possible, just so that he can get to that beautiful gold that's waiting for him in the mines of the Klondike. To be honest, it truly speaks of his resolve that he's still willing to carry on with these gold mining activities. After all, the problems are wide in variety, and they could strike at any given moment in time. If it isn't the unexpected events that took place following what one would have considered to be smart investments, it's troubles that spring up as Tony and his crew attempt to battle the elements as they attempt to mine for gold. Somehow, he finds the drive to carry on in the face of these challenges. Perhaps that is why he's considered to be such an impressive character. Always plotting and planning, everybody knew that Tony won't give up until he achieves his goal of expanding the full extent of his gold mining activities to the point of his satisfaction. Perhaps one of the short-term goals that he believed that he could achieve was the one where he set a target of extracting 5,000 ounces of gold from the mines that season. As lofty as this goal may sound,
Just had the inspector over, and guess what? I guess I better learn how to read, because we missed something in the license.
it is one that shows Tony's desire to make the most of any given situation, especially if it is to his advantage. To be honest, when one considers how much the going rate for gold has increased these days, anybody would try to sell as much as possible before the rates begin to fall. As such, one can see that Tony's gold mining success is based on his savvy for business, as well as his determined search for gold in the mines of the Klondike. With his acumen, it looked like Tony and his crew were set to find success in the mines and make millions of dollars in the bank if they're able to meet this high target of 5,000 ounces of gold for the season. Things might actually be looking good for the legendary old miner this season. That said, the initial yield of 650 ounces of gold following their first set of mining activities in those spots may have been disappointing to some. However, the likes of Tony and his crew saw this as an encouraging sign. Now that Tony has carried out all his detailed planning, it was now time to put these complex schemes into action. The first thing Tony and his crew did was to leave Paradise Hills behind so that they could check out the prospects of gold at Cold Cut and Blue Cut. Apparently, despite the discouraging harsh terrain in these spots, it is believed that there may be a lot of gold waiting for Tony and the crew if they're able to break through the tough ground there. The next set of weeks became a testament to determination and drive as the team continued their relentless search for gold in these mines. It was at this time that Tony decided that he was going to make use of a 25-foot Kiwi wash plant that had been idle for some time now. This meant that he had to consult with some experts who had the ability to put it back into shape. Hopefully, they'll be able to fix the minor issues so that the machine could be fully functional, especially now that the crew needed it so that they could achieve their goals out there on the mines. Despite this challenge to get their wash plant back into shape, the team continued with their exemplary exhibition of drive and determination as they plowed through the earth in their relentless quest for gold in the mines of the Klondike. However, this didn't mean that their problems were limited to their issues with the wash plant. Soon, Mike found that a damage chain had made a short 4-hour job in the mines to remain incomplete despite many hours of work. This definitely could not happen because the team knew that there was a $300,000 investment that was depending on the completion of their job, which needed the machine. Following the damage to the chain, Tony and the crew had to overcome their disbelief so that they could properly assess the situation for any other potential issues. Following this assessment, Brandon Carr then took on the job of turning the plant back over. Following this difficult task, the team carefully attempted to relocate the plant to the middle of the road so that they could perform an even more thorough evaluation of the plant. They could even realign it if they had the chance to.
Once in a while I have to sit in here myself. Move them trucks out of the...
Thankfully, they were able to achieve all these tasks about 8 hours after their departure from Paradise Hills. Tony must have been pleased as the plant was finally placed in its planned location. Despite all the problems, they had finally been able to place the plant in the perfect location for the analyses and their operations going forward. Things may just have taken a turn for the up. Well, they must have felt like that until they were faced with a problem with their water pump. How on earth did that happen? As annoying as not knowing what could have damaged their water pump must have been, we're sure that Tony and the crew were even more annoyed by the fact that this damage was going to cause a 2-day delay in their operations. I'm sure they were just fuming at all the gold that was slipping away. Well, now they had to wait for the arrival of an 11-ton mega pump before they could continue their exploration of the 80-pup cut for that sweet gold they're always looking for. They were just going to have to accept that the terrible timing of this damage was going to hinder their chances of reaching their target of 5,000 ounces of gold for the season. It had already messed up their chances of landing on good terrain for pay dirt. What else is it going to ruin? Soon, however, the 2 days elapsed and the team was glad to welcome the return of their mega pump. Under Tony's supervision, they were able to lift the pump and fix it back into its proper position. Hopefully, nothing would go wrong now, and the team can finally get back to work on the mines. Unfortunately, the team would find that their problems hadn't come to an end quite yet. No sooner had they fixed in their revived pump did they discover that the engine of the plant was refusing to kick into gear. What a life! Tony attempted to use some ether to provide a temporary fix to the situation, but nothing happened for the veteran and his plant. Did anybody walk under a ladder or something? It must be said that Tony and his men displayed their resilience as they dealt with these unexpected issues that just kept springing up. Either way, the team tried to make the most of the situation by coming up with innovative methods to make their plant work. After spotting that the water plant still wasn't generating power, Tony decided that the next best thing may be to boost the pump with a pipe layer to see if that would help the pump generate more power. Not wanting to take any more chances, they also decided to add some additional power to the unit. They hoped that with a starter and fresh air to the pump, they may be able to get the most out of their machine. Unfortunately, this didn't help them with their problem with the engine. Despite trying everything they knew, the engine just wouldn't come to life. After several days of frustration, the team decided to see if they could jumpstart the pump with the use of a pipe level. To their disbelief, this worked. They were all in good spirits as the engine roared to life almost seamlessly.
That seems to be all good. Engine good.
These machines, right? What are they like? You can just see the relief that they felt when they could finally rely on this new water pump. Now that things seemed to be in order, Tony started looking to the future to see if they could finally resume their gold mining activities. You can only imagine how much money they had lost thanks to that unwanted delay in their activities. Regardless of how their plans were derailed, the team continued with their work in the hopes that they could make up for the time and money they had lost due to the time spent repairing their machine. At the end of the week, they found that their relentless drive helped them extract almost 300 ounces of gold that week. That would help them earn about $500,000 in the rising gold market. Not bad when all the factors are properly considered. Hopefully they will make up for it in the weeks to come. With any luck, they could avoid any of those damaging setbacks that they had been experiencing. It must have been a point of pride for Tony and his crew to realize that despite suffering so many setbacks in the execution of their plans, they had still managed to amass about 3,000 ounces of gold so far that season. Not bad despite the problems with the water pump and the engine. How would they have thought that at that point in the season, they would have made it past the halfway mark towards their target? That was probably why Tony had to thank his team for their efforts. He recognized that without their relentless drive, they wouldn't have gotten so far. No way would it have gone down like that. Now that they had some more time thanks to crew members like Mike, the crew decided that they could rent some ground to the Winchester lads for the hunker cut. That way, they could increase the royalties they receive, at least in theory. The Winchesters still had to overcome some of the difficulties that they had been encountering in the Cursed Cut, one of the most difficult mining locations known to these miners. The Cursed Cut was said to be so difficult due to the thick black sand that is found in the place. Apparently, they were known to clog the rifles in the area, which in turn blocks any attempts to recover gold in the area. Not one to shrink away from a challenge, Tony suggested that they switch to hydraulic rifles so that it would increase the efficiency that was offered by the expanded metal ones. Eager for the results so that they could reach their 2,000-ounce per season goal, the Winchesters were willing to listen to anyone who may have a solution to this annoying problem. Hopefully, their state-of-the-art machines and their many crew members, eager to get to the gold in the soil, may be able to help them execute any plans that may come to mind. They take Tony and his son Mike as an example, who approach such problems with a rigor to make sure that they complete whatever tasks that they have in their pursuit for that gold. That is how they were able to strip the cold cut and the blue cut down to bedrock. Some of us may not understand how important this is, but it is a critical step that these miners must overcome in their battle against nature as they attempt this complex procedure of extracting gold from the mines. Thankfully, they have leaders like Mike on the team, who is always willing to get his hands dirty as he continues his ever-developing journey to become a gold miner as legendary as his father. Thanks to him alone, they were able to clear about 2/3 of the overburden. Despite such progress, however, the team soon found that they were working against time, as their tight schedule to strip. The remaining third of the overburden was still incomplete. As a result, Mike has to balance the task of managing one crew in the blue cut while directing the other at cold cut at the same time that he was overseeing the loading of the overburden into the rock trucks. Who said being the son of the boss was an easy job? As much as Tony and Mike may want to push themselves and the other members of the team, they had to acknowledge the fact that the harsh weather and the unforgiving terrain were hindering to the point where it was posing itself as a challenge to the team. As a result, the team had to consider the fact that it was time to approach these issues with caution as they carry on with their activities. This is perhaps why a newcomer to the mines known as Peter was happy to display his expert skills with D6 dozer. That way, he could perform his job, which involved manipulating melted mud at the cold cut dump site so that the rock trucks would have a clear route in and out of the site. Unfortunately for Peter and the rest of the team, they were soon helpless to the cruel hands of fate when they realized that the D6 dozer had broken down. What is it with these machines?
The track run off the D6. I need some help over here.
As they tried to deal with their damaged dozer, the team had to adapt to the situation by making an emergency move to an alternate dump site that was located about a half a mile away from them. As you can imagine, this was another annoying disruption to the team's workflow, and as a result, they could expect to experience delays in the systematic removal of the overburden on the land. Seeing no other options as to what to do, Tony decided to step in and take over by leading the coordinated effort to fix the dozer's mechanical difficulties, while also carefully re-establishing the track connection. Thankfully, the team was able to overcome these initial failures so that they could actually fix their dozer. Once they were able to put the D6 dozer back in order, the team was able to restart the operations at the old dump location. This repair job certainly improved the operations of the team, as they were now able to reduce the overburden at a quicker rate than they had before. They hoped that this would put them back on schedule with their gold extraction exercises in the mines. Thanks to the performances of these vigorous workers, the team was successfully able to open up both the cold cut and the blue cut. This gave them better access to the land, and in turn, this created a smoother atmosphere for the activities to continue in the mines. As such, they could take solace in the fact that despite still being away from their 5,000-ounce target, they were still able to come away with a valuable haul of gold with about $318,000. Such are the rewards for the team's persistence and hard work on the mines. With any luck, their hard work and persistence will help them meet their targets out there on the mines. There didn't seem to be any sort of hardship that could stop them from meeting their targets. Even in other mining companies, such as the one run by Parker Schnabel, the young mine boss that had battled the elements to stake a claim in the Yukon Territory, the crew members knew that they too must show some resolve in the face of the elements if they were going to make anything of themselves out there in the Yukon Territory. In the current season, Parker also set a big challenge for himself and his crew. They were going to mine the entire claim in one season, while also staving off the chances of losing a ton of money in the short period of 2 weeks. The challenge is looking really big because of the amount of ground that the team would have to cover if they were going to meet their targets. As you can imagine, this makes it quite the intense season for Parker and his men. In order to meet the demands of the season, Parker and his crew realized that they were going to have to make their way through this difficult terrain found in the massive mine. This would involve moving operations over bourbon. As much as they needed to make sure they complete this essential task to their plans, the team would have to deal with a setback that threatened to ruin their schedule. This was due to a super conveyor belt that suddenly began to malfunction. This was definitely bad timing because they had to remove about 200,000 yards of overburden before they could even have a chance of getting to the pay dirt, and they didn't need any more delays in their work. Looking for solutions to this problem, Parker decided to examine Tony's side of the fence so that he could determine the best location for this extra material. Looking deeper for answers, Parker decided to look into the waters of collaboration because he seemed to share the same water license with Tony. Furthermore, Tony still had some time on him, and this may be a problem because dumping dirt on his neighbor's property was already a problematic issue. To do so without his permission could create a situation that could easily be avoidable to those who respected their neighbors. Thankfully, Parker is a respectable and practical neighbor, so he decided that the best thing for him to do with Tony was to make a deal with the older miner. If he could make such a deal, Parker would proceed to remove the overburden from the cluster cut. With that out of the way, he was able to face the final obstacle that stood at the eastern edge. To speed up the process so that he could have a chance of meeting the 2-week deadline, Parker pondered on how effective it would be to shift the remaining overburden to Tony's side of the grounds as a short-term remedy to their current problems. Hopefully, Tony won't mind. He's a great neighbor. He may not even notice the dirt on his property. Following the execution of the plan, Parker must have felt his heart jump up to his throat when Tony just happened to notice that some men were pushing some dirt onto his property without his permission. Uh-oh. Enraged, Tony was somehow able to regain his composure before deciding to avoid any confrontations for the time being. Who knew why these men were doing this? He decided that he was going to be a good neighbor, so he let Parker and his men shift this significant burden onto his part of the property. With only 2 hours left in the day, Tony, the crew, and the 480 excavator worked hard to make sure that they were able to shift this overburden before their deadline elapses. We're sure that they must have cursed their luck when their excavator lost a track. Why would this choose to happen when they were just trying to meet a deadline? Hopefully, Parker will be able to solve these problems before he overstays his welcome on Tony's property. From the troubles that refuse to go away, as a legendary miner and his team attempt to meet their lofty target for the season, to the troubles of an up-and-coming miner that makes him cross boundaries that he would never have crossed before. Here's how Tony Beets just lost millions after something terrible happened at the gold mines.